Hey everyone, Randy here. Thanks for checking out my channel, Committed to Completion. In today's episode, I'm going to go over the difference between a project leader and a project coordinator. Now, for some of my veteran project managers, you already have kind of knowledge that there are two types of project managers out there. Ones that tend to be more of a project leader versus a project coordinator. And even out in the world of project management, there are titles that are project coordinator versus project manager. But for those folks who are new to project management, who are looking again to understand how to navigate this role as they are exploring this role, I do want to go over the differences between those two. And I have 4 kind of points that I want to go over. We're going to go over the scope of our responsibility differences. We're going to go over kind of what, in terms of decision-making authority or power, does a project leader versus a project coordinator have. We'll go over leadership versus team management. So between the two roles, they carry different responsibilities in those areas. And finally, the last point, number 4, is looking at kind of the strategic versus the tactical, meaning the project leader tends to be operating on that strategic level, inspiring, motivating, setting goals, roadmaps, things of that nature. Whereas the project coordinator is a little bit more tactical. There will be understanding where everything is at in terms of actions and activities and so forth. So we're going to go over those 4 main points. And as we go over them, we'll talk a little bit about, the value, right? One thing I want people to understand is whether you're a project leader or a project coordinator, both have very important roles in the overall success of a project. Both have to happen. Whether you have 1 person, 2 people, 3 people fulfilling the project leader versus project coordinator roles, the responsibility there has to be owned by someone. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So let's get started. So scope. A project leader, their main focus is to lead the team. And in that capacity, they are looking to set goals, work cross-functionally across the group, across the company or across teams, understands what's needed, what are the roadblocks, how do we want to go about running this project, what are the high-level goals, what are the objectives, and how do they align with their overall vision of the company if you're working in a kind of corporate environment. Versus a project coordinator. So what they're going to do is they're going to really look at the kind of the nitty-gritty details. Okay, we want to achieve this goal. What is it going to take? What type of personnel? What kind of team? What kind of resources? What's the timing of all these activities that we have to complete in order to achieve these goals? So, and they usually are the ones who are going to be working with different team members on a very low level from the bottom up, looking at, okay, you got to do this activity, how long it's going to take, and they'll start to build up the timeline or the schedule. Now, you might ask yourself, why do I need 2 people for this role? Because in the end of the day, you're asking, these are actually very unique skill sets. And to have someone to possess that kind of inspiring leadership, taking authority type of behavior versus someone who is very logical or wants to work on numbers and do analysis and build up schedules. Typically, you may not find a person who can do both very well. And sometimes you can, and that's great. And sometimes you have a project that's really complex where the demand for following up on individual tasks, building schedules, doing the analysis that comes with project management is a very high workload, and can take away from the ability of, of being a project leader, going and having one-on-one discussions, meeting with folks to understand what are their needs, getting feedback from maybe leadership to understand, are we moving in the right direction? So again, in the end of the day, it depends on the overall magnitude of your project. If it's small enough, probably can't have 1 person who does project leading and project coordination very well, or good enough to at least do it, do both roles. So just take that into consideration when you're setting up your team. How big is the project? What are we trying to do? How many things are involved? What's involved in this project? And do I need one person playing that project leader role and one person playing that project coordinator role to be successful? Second, decision-making authority. So this one is, I would say, a very key distinction. When we think of a project leader, we think of someone, again, who's setting goals, setting the vision. But along the way, as we are kind of marching along and executing the project, there's going to be a time where we need to make decisions, where we're going to need to go left or right, pick red or blue, spend this money here versus spend this money there, move this resource over here, move this resource over there. So these are decisions that ultimately need to be made at the team level. Sure, you could probably go to your executive leadership, and ask them for guidance and questions, but they're going to expect you as a project leader to be able to drive those decisions within your team. So that's a big distinction between a project leader and a project coordinator. A project coordinator doesn't necessarily have to make those decisions, but where they come into play and where they're very complementary to the project leader is helping to implement those decisions. Their strength lies in the fact that they understand who to go to, who's impacted, and go off and work with those folks to make sure that because of this decision, those folks are set up for success. Those folks understand what just happened. And we will working with individuals who are executing action items and taking have responsibilities and deliverables, are clear on what has happened in regards to the key decisions and how that then translates into changes into their work. So again, different responsibility, different roles there, but very important. If we want to have a successful project, we have to do both well. And sometimes, again, you need that split into a project leader and a project coordinator doing those specific types of activities. Next, leadership versus team management. So already in the previous 2 points, we kind of hinted how a project leader really is driving toward understanding how to lead their team, how to inspire their team, how to motivate their team, how to have their team work collaboratively. So when it's really, in summation, really the specific skills around people management, team management is very important there in terms of kind of making sure your team is working together. They're inspired, they understand the goals, the vision, and they're moving all aligned into that direction. Whereas the project coordinator, again, more of the mechanics, making sure that as information and decisions are made, as activities are completed, people within the whole project are aware of what's going on. So they're key in terms of the communication. So when we think of team management, is the team aware of what's going on? How quickly are they being informed? Who needs to be informed versus who doesn't need to be informed of certain pieces of information? And just making sure that as the project continues moving forward, the team understands who's doing what, how their activity or how their lack of being on, or lack of activity, if anything, right? Both negative and positive outcomes of certain individuals, how they may impact other people in the group. This is where the project coordinator can be very pivotal in making sure people understand the interdependencies of the activities that are involved in a project. And then finally, strategic versus tactical. When we think of a project, it really can be looked at as a collection of strategies, right? In terms of execution, how are we going to execute this project, right? And when we think about, a very complex project where you may have design work happening, you may be having software development happening, you may be having people in different locations doing different parts of design, different people in different locations doing different parts of manufacturing. And at some point, all of this work has to be coordinated, has to come together. So there's the strategy of where we do things, why we do it there, and who's responsible for it. That's very much strategic, and where a project leader is going to be important to drive those decisions around strategy. And then the project coordinator Again, partnering with that project leader to then make sure that, okay, those strategies are executed, that we have systems in place, structure in place to realize those strategies, and monitor how the project is being executed. So that can be a shared responsibility, but again, from collecting the data, getting feedback, that can very much well be the responsibility of the project coordinator. So, in conclusion, the project leader and the project coordinator, very different roles, but also very important roles to the success of our project. You can't have one without the other, in my opinion. And yes, you can have one person do both. But if that project is large in scope, big team, geographically divided, it's going to really put wear and tear on that one person. So you want to think about, are you up for that? As a project leader, or a project manager, do you have the capacity? Do you have the energy to both lead it and coordinate it? If not, bring on that second person to say, hey, I'm going to be the project lead, you be the project coordinator, or vice versa, right? Neither role, I would say, some people might say project leader is more important. It has a little more, gravitas or importance to the overall success of the project than the project coordinator. I would argue that they're equally important. And here's a great example, right? If you look at Apple, one of the biggest companies ever to have come around, Steve Jobs, very, very charismatic, very energetic, very inspiring leader. One can say that there would be no Apple without Steve Jobs, and I would argue, yeah, that's right. You wouldn't have that company without him. So his leadership ability to lead his company, to lead his team of employees, was second to none, some of the best. But when you look at the story of Apple, a lot of its success is also based upon its execution, its ability to deliver on time the products that they said that they were going to make. And a lot of that is attributed to Tim Cook, who, again, took on the role of CEO once Steve Jobs passed away. Tim Cook, you can see it too in his style and when they have product releases. Yeah, he's a great speaker. He does the job well, but he doesn't carry that same presence, if you will, that Steve Jobs did. But still, Tim Cook, very pivotal. There would probably be, issues or products that weren't realized if Steve Cook wasn't the great, leader he was in terms of making sure things were executed. There were systems in place. There was accountability. Things were followed up on. So I want you guys to think about it. When you start your journey on project management, where do you want to start off as? As project coordinator, it may be an easier entry point into different companies or different projects because there's always this, need to make sure that projects are running as planned, that people are doing what they need to do, that they're supported, right? It's not just checking on people, but it's also just setting them up for success. Whereas a project leader, again, they carries a little bit more of that soft skills, interpersonal skills, people management skills that come about with general team management. So again, think about your strengths going into project management. Where is it that you feel that you can quickly come into a role and fill that role and play that role well up front, whether that's a project leader or project coordinator. And then as you get into that role, work on that other side of project management. If you're a project leader and maybe your project coordinator skills or that analytical side of project management, there's room to improve on that, then work on that. Vice versa, if you're a project coordinator, find ways to get yourself trained up and get opportunities to learn how to apply those people management skills and be that project leader. In the end of the day, you're going to benefit from having the ability to flex and be good at both project leading and project coordinating. So with that said, committed to completion community, I'm excited for all of you guys who are looking into project management, looking into understanding like how you can break into it. And again, if for those in my who are watching this are just again wanting to understand how to apply project management into their own daily lives, like you're not necessarily trying to be a project manager in your job or corporate setting, I would say that in your own household, right? If you're married, if you have a significant other, the same applies. Someone needs to be leading your family. Someone needs to be leading your team there at home. And someone needs to be good at also being a coordinator, making sure that systems and structures are in place so that family of people are able to feel that they are empowered, that they're going to be set up for success, right? And that may, and from a project leader, that may look like as a father. What are you doing to set expectations? What are you doing to make sure that people understand what is acceptable and what's not in your home? And how do you enforce that? How do you inspire people to be better at people, better kids, better behaved, right? And then as a project coordinator, that could be the role of, hey, there's chores to be done at certain times. We don't leave things out, after we're done using them. Let's put them away. Making sure bills are paid on time, right? Those are all systems. Those are all kind of the mechanics of making sure that the day-to-day things that are happening in the household happen without issue. So, again, think about that. These are roles that are pivotal, not just for a project to be successful, but in your daily lives. Who's playing those roles and how to be successful at that? If you want to learn more, hey, message me. I'd love to find a way to set up a meeting. We can chat more, whether in the comments or privately. I'd love to understand how I can help you understand kind of again where you may want to enter project management. How do you apply project leadership, project roles, not just in the corporate world, but in your own daily lives? DM me. Great to connect with you all again, and I look forward to reaching out to you soon. Thanks, everyone.